An ordinary morning, commuters on highways, oceans steady, wildlife grazing under open sky. Then the temperature starts climbing, and it doesn't stop. Within hours, asphalt softens into tar, power grids buckle, and firestorms generate their own winds at 160 kilometers per hour. The entire planet is superheating in a single day. By hour 12, the world you recognize no longer exists. By the end of the first hour, the city's morning rhythm is already breaking down. Pavement that once held millions of cars begins to soften, the blacktop shimmering as its surface temperature pushes past 60 degrees Celsius. On a typical summer day, asphalt might deform under heavy trucks after hours of relentless sun. Now, with the heat climbing relentlessly, deep ruts form in minutes. Tires, engineered to withstand the hottest highways, start to fail as the road temperature tops 70 degrees Celsius. Sidewalls bulge, then burst, scattering shredded rubber across lanes already choked by gridlock. Engines overheat as coolant systems falter. Parked vehicles become ovens, their dashboards warping, batteries swelling, and hoods steaming. Within 2 hours, stalled cars and blown tires litter the streets, trapping commuters in a landscape that feels foreign and hostile. Public transit offers no escape. Train rails designed to flex with the seasons begin to buckle as steel expands beyond its limits. Transit authorities scramble to impose emergency speed restrictions, but by the third hour, entire lines grind to a halt. Buses break down on softening roads, their tires giving out and engines seizing in the stifling air. Bridges, their expansion joints overwhelmed, creak and groan as the metal inside them stretches. The city's arteries, once so reliable, are clogged and failing. Above it all, the electrical grid strains under record demand. Air conditioners run non-stop, drawing power at rates never seen before. Transformers, built with narrow thermal margins, heat up rapidly. Once oil inside a transformer passes 120 degrees Celsius, insulation begins to break down. By the fourth hour, the first local outages sweep through residential blocks and business districts. Traffic lights blink out. Elevators grind to a stop. Hospitals switch to backup generators as the grid flickers and surges. An electrical engineer explains that even a 40% surge in load can push equipment into failure. Every minute, more neighborhoods go dark. In less than half a morning, the conveniences of modern life, mobility, electricity, even the illusion of safety are stripped away. People abandon their vehicles, searching for shelter as the heat continues to rise. The world outside, once familiar, is becoming a trap. By midday, the world outside has become a furnace. In rural valleys and forested hills, the rising heat drives a terrifying transformation. Fields once green and orderly are now streaked with smoke as crops reach their ignition point. Wheat and corn, unable to withstand air temperatures above 45 degrees Celsius, wither in hours. By noon, entire harvests are lost. The protein inside plant cells denatures, leaves shrivel, and stalks collapse. In some regions, the heat alone is enough to spark fires. No lightning, no spark, just spontaneous combustion as dry stalks reach their flashpoint. A wildfire scientist stands before footage of a pyroconvective plume, explaining how firestorms now build on themselves. Pyrocumulonimbus clouds tower overhead, born from the relentless energy release at the surface. These fire clouds generate their own wind fields, swirling at up to 160 kilometers per hour, feeding oxygen into the flames and hurling embers kilometers ahead. In Australia's Black Summer of 2019 to 2020, these storms sent smoke 15 kilometers into the stratosphere. Today, the process repeats at planetary scale. The air is so unstable that fire-generated updrafts accelerate, drawing in walls of air from all directions. Gusts whip across burning fields, driving the fire front at speeds rural firefighting teams have never seen, up to 20 kilometers per hour in grasslands, 4 kilometers per hour through forests. There is no hope of containment. In the countryside, a farmer watches helplessly as his pond drops centimeters every hour. At 60 degrees Celsius, evaporation rates skyrocket. Shallow lakes and reservoirs shrink visibly, their muddy banks widening by the hour. Livestock cluster near the last puddles, tongues swollen, eyes glazed. Cattle and sheep collapse from heat stroke before dehydration finishes the job. Birds drop from the sky, unable to cool themselves. Even insects vanish from the air, scorched by the superheated wind. By the 7th hour, the resource freefall becomes absolute. Water tankers run dry. Irrigation pumps, already useless without electricity, stand silent. The soil, stripped of moisture, cracks and smolders. Across continents, service calls go unanswered. Fire crews are overwhelmed, communications lost. The network of support that once connected rural life has burned away, leaving only isolation and the roar of wind-driven fire. In the cities, darkness lingers from the earlier blackout. But out here, the devastation is illuminated by the orange glow of a planet ablaze. The scale of chaos has grown beyond any hope of recovery. By midday, the world's ecological systems are not just failing. They are actively fueling the disaster, amplifying the crisis with every gust of wind and every drop of water that vanishes into the air. A chalkboard fills with numbers as an astrophysicist begins the calculation. Earth absorbs about 1.2 times 10 to the 22nd joules of solar energy each day. An immense sum, but one that barely nudges the planet's temperature. The atmosphere alone holds a heat capacity of roughly 5 times 10 to the 21st joules per Kelvin. The oceans dwarf even that, requiring more than 10 to the 24th joules to raise their temperature by a single degree. To force a global temperature spike of 10 degrees Celsius in just 24 hours, the planet would need to absorb nearly 10 to the 25th joules, more than 100,000 times what the sun delivers in a day. A climate physicist sketches the numbers side by side. The required energy input translates to a radiative forcing of 200,000 watts per square meter. For comparison, the solar constant, the full power of sunlight at the top of the atmosphere, is just under 1,400 watts per square meter. No known natural or artificial process comes remotely close. Even the most violent solar superflare ever recorded on a sun-like star would fall short by orders of magnitude, and most of that energy would be scattered or absorbed in the upper atmosphere, never reaching the surface or the oceans. The numbers are unyielding. Volcanoes, asteroid impacts, and even the wildest runaway greenhouse scenarios cannot deliver the energy fast enough. The Earth's thermal inertia acts as a shield, slowing any attempt to change its temperature on such a colossal scale. The scenario of a 10 degrees Celsius jump in a single day is not just improbable. It is physically impossible. The laws of physics themselves become the planet's final line of defense, even as the world in this story is pushed to the edge of credibility. Inside a darkened room, an emergency physician lays out the numbers with no room for comfort. At a wet bulb temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, even the healthiest adult cannot survive more than a few hours. Sweat stops evaporating, the body's last defense fails, and core temperature rises past 40.5 degrees Celsius. Confusion, collapse, then organ failure. Death can follow in as little as 3 hours. For most, the threshold is even lower. Recent studies show that at wet bulb temperatures between 26 and 31 degrees Celsius, the body's cooling system falters, especially for the elderly or those with heart conditions. In this world, the air is thick with heat and humidity, and every breath pushes the body closer to its limit. Water loss accelerates the countdown. In extreme heat, a person can lose over 2 liters of sweat per hour. Without drinking, dehydration alone can be fatal in less than a day. Under these conditions, the classic rule of 3 days without water, no longer applies. Thirst becomes agony. Muscles cramp, blood thickens, and the heart strains to pump what little fluid remains. Even those who find shade are not safe. The heat seeps into every structure. Shallow underground bunkers, often imagined as last resorts, buy only a brief reprieve. Soil insulates against the sun, But after several hours, the relentless heat above penetrates downward. Within a day, most shallow shelters become ovens themselves. A pulmonologist steps in with a stark warning. As wildfires rage and cities burn, the air fills with fine particulates and carbon monoxide. At concentrations above 1,000 micrograms per cubic meter, breathing becomes hazardous. Smoke and toxic gases overwhelm the lungs, especially in closed spaces. Oxygen levels drop, while carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin, starving organs of air. For those sheltering underground, poor ventilation turns safety into suffocation. Above ground, the combination of heat and smoke closes every escape route. Survival is now a matter of hours, not days, and every option narrows to a single, grim calculation. How much longer can the body hold out against a world that no longer supports life? No sudden cataclysm threatens us tonight, but the laws of physics remain unforgiving. Even a few degrees of real warming are destabilizing food, water, and power systems worldwide. Our margin for error vanishes with every fraction gained. Survival, now and always, depends on what we choose before the clock runs out.